Hi everyone, this is Arpad from the YouTube channel Starpath Academy, and today I want to talk about the differences between perception and reality when it comes to the economy and stock market. I know, right? So, so when it comes to perception of the stock market, I think the indicators, and I have to double check what they're showing now, but I think they're peak optimism. I think the VIX is probably as it's low as it has been for a very long time. So meaning that optimism is back in the market now. That must mean that there's only one way to go from here, right? Down. Now I'm not going to make that prediction because I'm not advisor and I'm not a stock expert, not at all. In fact, I'm mostly out of that completely, and shorting any market is probably one of the most dangerous plays you can have in economic stupidity. But what I want to talk about is that usually the trade of thinking that, oh, inflation is going to kick back in, monetary easing is going to kick back in, it's not a bad play to go long on the stock market. People have done that, right? The problem is, in my opinion, and this is back to where in one of my earliest videos were that people asking, okay, what did the stock market do during hyperinflation? And it's not necessarily the hyperinflationary scenario or inflationary scenario, but the difference between real wages rising and real costs rising, the difference between that. Because if they're relatively rising on the same pace, even if wages are lagging usually a couple of months, maybe 6 months or so, eventually you might end up in the very same scenario, but all just numbers being higher, right? So inflation happened, everything went up by 50%, your wages went up by 50%, which is almost never the case. But relatively speaking, because the difference didn't change that much, you're not experiencing hardship, right? You're not changing economic classes. Now, I don't know if that's true or not in this current situation, because the difference is quite significant. And that means to me that blindly investing into companies, right, doesn't necessarily make too much sense, because eventually that difference between what you used to spend and what you can spend now because of necessities is going to show up somewhere. And it's going to show up somewhere, and most likely it's going to show up in you unsubscribing from subscriptions that you have paid before, right? Or you subscribing to me for free content on the YouTube channel. But basically what I'm saying, maybe you're going to cut back on some lifestyle, right? And usually it's not the very necessary stuff, but you're going to spend less on this, you're going to spend less on that. And I'm just, you know, it's a one-time thing. Measurement is not necessarily a big confirmation, but if you take a look at sales for this Black Friday event, whatever, they weren't as good as people expected it. Well, clearly it cannot be, because the wages haven't kept up, and in my sense it's not going to keep up. So what are you doing? You know, why are we thinking, or why are people even thinking that, okay, putting more money into the stock market is a good idea if profits won't rise, right? And actually some companies, around 10%, is almost always just zombie companies anyway, in the sense zombie companies mean that they're not really having cash flow, but they can always somehow stay afloat because they can borrow more, right? Well, interest rates are not going to get as low for those zombie companies to still survive for a long time, right? So that's going to kick in eventually. Now, I cannot predict it when, but it's going to kick in. The same thing with the builders, that they just cannot stop building. It's like they just zombies anyway. So they keep on building houses, but they're still longer on the market. And if they cannot keep doing that, then they're gonna try, because lumber prices are now low, sort of low anyway, because economic growth isn't that good. So because of lumber prices are down, they're gonna try to build something and then sell it later on. But now it's shrinkflation in the builders as well, because the houses that they build are no longer these regular old homes, but they're almost like sheds from what you see in Texas. I mean, I don't know if you've seen these houses where it's like, it's just a shed with a kitchen and maybe a room, you know. So I mean, they look nice, they look modern from the inside, but I mean, like, is this the American dream? Like, is this what you've been working for? You know, if you're a Zoomer or millennial or whatever, I mean, it's pretty sad, to be honest. So what is happening? So I think we're disconnecting. The disconnect between reality and perception is just going to get further and further. And there's no telling what will happen to the stock market. That's why I don't play it. However, eventually reality will hit. Now, it might not hit this year, it might not hit next year, but eventually it's going to hit, right? And what happens then, right? So, but this is a big opportunity for you. Like, as a person, if you take a look at this, and if you know that people are going to scale back, and people need to prepare for the economic winter and different life standards, right? All you have to do is to thrive. Basically, look at a big brand or a big brand service that you can do half of at maybe 60% of the price. So if you are an entrepreneur, you can take a look at anything that people must buy or they are not willing to give up, right? Provide that, but cheaper. And it's okay to cut back on the types of services. It's okay to cut back on even the quality, even though it's more like, don't offer all those extras. Just offer the bare bones, what is truly necessary in that service, and cut back the price by maybe, 30%. So take a look at your, the company or the field that you work in, right? And identify some of the most important parts of that service or product. What is like, not the fluff on top of it, not the extras they give you, nothing else above, just a very basic thing that you must have, right? So in any product or service, is like packaged, is what people actually want to buy. Then there's add-ons, and then you can pay extra or maybe something else, and then you want to top it off to get rid of your competitors. But there's this very basic layer, right? What you must have, right? For instance, internet, right? So people can get away with slower internet speed if they don't game that much, right? But they got sold on, okay, you need this, you need that, and and your children are using all this internet speed. Technically, you don't necessarily need that, so you can scale back on it. Now, you won't be without internet. You don't want to go that part, right? But that means that people will be switching internet service providers in these times. So think about it that way, but identify your field, your knowledge, what you know, what you buy, right? And pick up something in that space, provide it at a cheaper price, but provide only the basics. And people will flock into that, unfortunately. This is stepping back in lifestyle a little bit, but that will happen. It has to happen, because the difference between wages and the difference between inflation is, the gap is just keeps on increasing. And that will cut into the profits of big brand companies that provide services or products that are not necessary, right? So those services and products are going to be in danger. But this is a perfect opportunity for you to come up with alternatives as an entrepreneur and make big bucks from it. Now, because these economic winter periods is where lifestyle changes have to happen. And it's going to happen, and people are going to swap in brands, and people are going to jump in ship from one service to another, and a lot of unnecessary stuff will cut back. And you, as a person, even if you're not an entrepreneur, this is the opportunity for you to look for those new, maybe different internet service providers, or whoever services your car, or what you used to pay for pay less, right? So they're gonna pop up. They're gonna pop up somewhere, and you're gonna make opportunities from this. But you have to get early in. So don't let your lifestyle run out of like on a cliff, because it usually lags. Just like Wile E. Coyote, he runs off of the cliff, and he then suddenly realizes there's no ground underneath it. So you as a person, make sure, don't necessarily make a budget if you that's too hard for you, but just do this exercise. Write down everything, and absolutely every single thing that you have spent money on, and for the next 4 weeks, basically for a month, and see what are the services that are auto pay. See what you spent on that you could spend less, and if you cannot spend, if it's something that you have to buy, then what you could do is look for alternatives. Different brands, cut back in lifestyle. What you don't want to do in this period, you don't want to rack up credit card debt. It's already through the roof, and if you look at the charts, you gotta watch out. Cut back, step back, relax, don't spend all that money, put that cash away, and you're gonna be able to hopefully open your own business or small business, and look for opportunities in the shadow of big brand companies that are gonna suffer, because from those big brand companies, people will scatter and look for alternatives, and you'll be picked up. That was a pretty good strategy during hyperinflation Romania, when big factories went bust, and small entrepreneurs could come in with small shops, and they would get really rich during those times. So join me next time, and subscribe to my channel, and buymeacoffee.com, and see you next time.